joining us here today. We're very excited to have an amazing panel for this discussion joining us. And we're excited to be discussing the 2024 PGA Show, what's new this year, and best practices to have a successful show. So I'd like to get started by introducing today's panelists. We have Lisa Langas, who's the event manager for PGA Show and RX Global. We have Ryan Austad, the president and COO of Austad's Golf. Andrew Blatnik, the PGA Director of Retail Operations at Oak Hill Country Club. And Bobby Berry, the Director of Retail at Desert Mountain Club. Thank you all for joining us for this discussion. So at the AGM, our mission is simple: to elevate retail, enhance relationships, and educate always. So let's jump into the PGA Show. We're very excited to help you prepare to make the most of your time when you get on the show floor, which will be here before we know it, coming up in just a little less than 2 weeks. So very exciting. We have a lot of things we're going to cover today. We're going to go over our top tips for the show from the panelists, preparing for the show, how to manage your time and seeing new vendors, what technology is available to support your time at the show, all the great educational opportunities from both the PGA and the AGM, additional AGM opportunities that are going on during the show week, and some exciting new things happening this year. So to get started, I'd love to have our panelists share some of their top tips for a successful PGA show, as well as what they're most excited for this year. Lisa, would you like to start us out?
Yes. First of all, I noticed I used to be a brunette. I need to update my headshot there. This job is turning me gray because I love it so much. Yeah, we're super excited. There's so many things to get ready for the show. Your best resource is to really go to the PGA Show website. I've sent in a lot of information there that you can use, and it's just try to be as planned as you can. And all of the new activations that we have, it's all available on the website. So make sure while you're buying, you're still finding some time to catch an education session here and there that's complimentary, the fashion show, the concert. You know, I mean, we really have, I can't speak to everything because it's all so exciting and also new club amenities, but take a look and make sure you catch some of the new things. Don't just stay with what you normally do.
Ryan, how about you? Would you like to share what some of your successful tips are and what you're excited for?
Yeah, you bet. And Lisa, you may be a brunette, or used to be a brunette. According to my picture, I used to have hair, so I'm not sure which is worse. But nonetheless, so I'll attack this kind of from a retail-centric point of view. But some of our top tips, we've been going to the PGA Show for many decades, and even before that, I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember like the Sportsman Show in Chicago and shows in Vegas. So we've done a lot of these since 1963 when we got our start. But a couple of things we found that has been really helpful for us. I would say you need to attack the PGA Show with a very specific goal in mind, whether that's an individual goal or each person on your team that's attending needs to have a goal in mind so they can then create organization and a structure around that goal. And to be candid, at Austad's, we're bringing 5 people this year. We've met, each person has a unique and different goal than what they had last year, and they're structuring their entire show around that goal. So that would be number one. Number two, I would say bring a lot of data and information to your vendor partners. We've found that our vendors are phenomenal partners when we're transparent with them. And by transparent, I mean, what were the sales? What's their market share? What are our inventory turns with them? What did our margin look like? And that can help lead to really productive conversations around how you move the partnership forward. We've found we don't have very productive conversations when we show up with meetings or for meetings without a lot of data. So most of your show success, or at least in our case, happens when we do a lot of that prep work. 2 more quick ones. I would say, I think there's a book, Never Eat Alone. That is the best tip for the PGA Show. is never waste a moment to connect with others in the industry and to connect with your vendors. It's amazing how deep relationships can get, whether it's over coffee in the morning or dinner at night. And so we actually spend as much time planning our meals and our coffees and maybe a cocktail hour as we do planning our meetings during the day. And then the last thing I would say is you're going to have a million things flying around in your head after each day because you're going to meet a lot of people and a lot of prospects and vendors. So it's good to debrief at the end of the day, whether it's at, right before dinner, sit down with your team or other trusted resources within the industry and talk about what you saw and the immediate follow-ups that need to happen. And then I'll forget if I don't put it in my calendar. So every day I take a little time and I put those follow-up items in my calendar as to when I need to get them done. Otherwise they will leave my brain very quickly. As my hair has left my head, they will leave my brain just as quickly the next day when I get back to the next round of meetings. So a couple things there for you.
Thank you, Ryan. Those are all great. I love the idea of never eat alone and making sure you're using all your time, even your meal times, with all the folks you'll be interacting with there. Andrew, we'd be happy to hear some of your top tips and what you're excited for.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks for having me. Ryan, I agree. You gotta plan ahead with those dinners and lunches and cocktail hours are probably the most important networking opportunities that we get. For me, I'm a relatively small team when we get there. I only have 2 to 3 other people I'm working with. So I do as much planning ahead of the PGA show as I can. So for a lot of vendors that I know I'm going to do business with, I will have already pre-booked the orders. And if I have a meeting, I'll sit down during those meetings and we'll only edit. That way we don't have to start from scratch any particular order. So do as much planning ahead as you can, whether that's booking your orders or your dinner reservations or whatever you don't have to do when you get to Orlando so you can focus on the show itself. That kind of goes into number 2, which is don't set unnecessary meetings or waste time on the show floor. If your goal, like Ryan said, is to find new vendors, don't set meetings with existing vendors that you could do outside of the PGA show if you've got the time to do that. I always like to pre-book or make my orders outside of the PGA show so that I can set time for walking the floor, meeting new people, and finding what products I might miss by sitting for 30 minutes to an hour during an existing meeting. And then the third, I think, is the most important for a lot of new buyers is don't be afraid to say no. Even if you have a meeting that you sit down and with a new vendor, an existing vendor, you have no obligation to buy what they're selling. And likewise, if you're a vendor, if a club or a company coming to you looking to buy is asking for too much, trying to negotiate too much, again, say no. So it kind of works both ways. Don't be afraid to, negotiate on your behalf. Kind of say no when you have to.
Thank you, Andrew. And we have some of Andrew's great documents that he uses to prepare for the show later on in this presentation. He'll talk through for us. Bobby, we'd be happy to hear what your top tips are and what you're looking forward to at the show.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, Justine, and it's great to be on here, and it's great to see some new people and meet some new people just even this way as well. But yeah, Ryan, you started this off. You stole a lot of my great ideas, so it's and Andrew, you guys, I couldn't agree with with Ryan and Andrew more. I mean, my 3 that I kind of gave to Justine before was to me, number 1 is have a plan. Is you go down there with no goal set or no plan for what you want to accomplish. Like it's going to just overwhelm you. You won't be productive, and you won't end up getting a lot out of the show for what you are going to go down there for. And a lot of that too is you can do not just within your own teams, but just on your own in terms of doing like some homework in terms of what vendors are actually going to be there. So like if you're going down there thinking that you're going to see Peter Millar this year, and that's one of your big plans, like you're going to be disappointed. So if you look at the app or look at the website, like Lisa said, see who the vendors are. And if you don't know who they are, research them, Google them, find out who they are. You might discover some vendors before the show that you want to make sure and make it a point to stop by and visit. So I think that's really important. Kind of like what Andrew said as well as my next one is be flexible. Don't set too many appointments and don't book appointments with vendors that you can see locally. So like we try to, here we try to only book appointments with things we can't see here in Arizona. So, and I think that's really a huge tip for everybody is don't bog yourself down with, the time goes by really quick when you're there. And so yeah, just be open to being able to have enough free time just to walk the show, introduce yourself, meet new people. And then really the last thing for me that wasn't already said was just make sure you have fun, enjoy the show. Like if you go down there and it becomes a, too much work or too much like where you're overwhelmed and you're not enjoying it, you won't look forward to going, next year. And I think between most of us here, this is probably my close to 20th show. So it's, and I still look forward to it. So like, I think that's because we make sure we have some fun. And I know some other people that I've met in the industry, they don't look forward to it because they don't really take time to have fun and use it as some team building as well. So.
Thank you, Bobby. Definitely some team building opportunities there as well while your team's on site in Orlando. So our panelists touched on some of these things, but anything specific, additional, you'd like to share as far as how you prepare for the show, anything specific you pack or how you plan your week, what you bring with you to the actual show floor, comfortable shoes, all that, anything the panel would like to share?
A lot of people inundate you with like physical catalogs, things like that. If you are going to take physical catalogs, bring something that you don't have to carry over your shoulder, make it a large backpack or a roller bag or whatever. I highly suggest that you take digital catalogs only and ditch the physical. It's easier for travel. It's easier on you during the day. By Thursday afternoon, your shoulders are going to hurt if you take them all. And then, make sure that you are booking stuff ahead of time. It's not really, bringing to the show floor, but if you're booking dinners, you better get on it now. If you're booking lunches outside of the show, you better do it now. Anything that gets you to plan ahead.
I just was going to chime in if anybody's planning on going to demo day. Winter Garden is almost an hour away from Orlando, and the weather is quite different there. So just make sure you're looking and wear layers. It can be beautiful and sunny by noon, but in the morning at 9 a.m. when it opens for PGA Pros, it's definitely not that warm. So layers, including hats, scarf, gloves, make sure you have sunglasses and are prepared for the day to be outside. So I think that's, there's as much business opportunity to be had at demo day, although you're not order writing, but it's a great way to understand, get a preview, particularly for equipment and equipment accessories, hard good accessories that you're going to want to then follow up with them at the show on Wednesday through Friday. But make sure you're prepared for demo day and you have a great time because we'd love for you to stay out there longer.
Thank you, Lisa. That's great information on demo day. Bobby and Ryan, anything additional to add here?
I think those are good. In terms of what to bring to the show floor, I already touched on the vendor scorecards, which we bring to all of our major vendors that we meet with. One other thing you might consider, we started doing this probably 7 or 8 years ago, where we do a brief one pager that just has the Austad's, now would be 2024 outlook. And we do that because we end up, either running into or having a meeting with, it might be Chip Brewer or David Abelise or the CEO of one of these big companies or the national sales manager. And it's a really good way to quickly give them, you might only get 10, 20 minutes with them, but it's a good leave behind to hopefully leave that positive impression with them about where your business is going and where your partnership is going. So something to think about, that it's hard to get time with those individuals. They're going to be there, and Abelise won't be there this year, but the other guys will be there. So whatever you can do to prepare for that quick, 5-minute elevator pitch could be beneficial for you and your business.
Wonderful. And is that a document that is kind of sharing your outlook and your vendor analysis for the year and where you stand?
It's not, what we'd give to Chip wouldn't necessarily be, hey, here's where we were with Callaway this last year. We'll express that in the meeting or to their national sales manager. It's more forward looking. So here's what we're excited about going forward. Here's our growth trajectory. Here's our plan. Here's where we're having success. Again, relationships in our industry, I don't have to tell anyone on this call, are vitally important. And you want to make sure they're always excited about what you're doing at your particular organization, and that they have that brand impression of you and your company as a forward-thinking institution that is worthy of their partnership over the long haul.
Wonderful. I think that's a terrific way to give the vendors you're meeting with a physical takeaway as well from their end. You're taking catalogs and you can have something for them as well.
Oh.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so all I really would add is one of the things I totally agree with Andrew is make sure you travel light at the show. We pretty much have don't take a physical catalog at all kind of a policy almost, like we just don't want to be overloaded with stuff, and that's always really good advice. But I think also too, just we make sure that when you're there and you come prepared to take lots of pictures of stuff and also take good notes when you're there, so that you don't, it's easy to like, I can't tell you how many times we were at the show in the past and we saw something we really liked, and then like a year later we're like, oh yeah, what was that we saw at the show the year before, and we never actually followed up. We never actually, like, we were looking through old, and it's like, well, so we try to, every year we try to evolve into being more prepared with some good notes that go along with photos, so we're not just looking back at a photo and going, well, I don't know why we took this photo. What is this? And so that way we know that there's a pairing to that photo and a little bit of like almost like a description for it, so that when we put our summary together as a team, we've got really good things to go off of.
I love the idea of taking photos. I definitely have done that in the past on the show floor, just quickly in the moment, taking pictures. So I'll remember things when I'm back home, but pictures are great. Lisa was kind enough to share some of the information on the PGA Show website that you can access. So this main information here has, key hours, what you can expect. Lisa, anything else we can share on this particular piece?
No, this is as you go to the PGA Show website, and it's one of the first tabs that you select. The link is there. Everybody, I can't tell you how many emails I get. When does the show open? When does it close? All those kinds of things. And, where's this and where's that? What's happening? So this is kind of an at a glance with all of the main events, including conference, demo day, when show exhibits are open and things like that. So, and then from here, when you scroll down this page, there's links to all the other sections. So this is a great starting point from the home page to get to all the other things that are happening, like the fashion show, which we're really excited about in a new area of the show this year. So I would highly encourage everybody to get to this page, make the notes you need, and then you'll know what time you can, show up at the doors.
Perfect. Thank you, Lisa. So now we've talked about preparing for packing for the show, your time at the show. So now just wanted to talk a bit deeper about preparing for your buying, what you're there to do at the heart of it. So as our panelists mentioned, it's always great to go in with a plan, bring what numbers are available to you, whether that's your open to buy plan, if you have a vendor analysis that you're looking at, if you utilize a floor plan to plan out your deliveries and your quantities, which Andrew will be sharing with us a bit later, his floor plans. And as the panelists mentioned, making yourself aware with what vendors are attending and making sure you have time for new vendors and having your appointments in line and scheduled ahead as well. Any additions here regarding how you prepare to buy when you're at the show specifically and having your numbers ready?
One other thing to think about, Justine, is how you bring that product to life. And many of the vendors have POP or have fixturing and displays. Many do not. And so that's one thing to consider when you're there. You're going to have your open to buy numbers. And if you find product that you really like, it's going to sit on your shelf if you can't bring it to life in a meaningful way and really showcase it. So we have a lot of conversations with our vendors about how we create the story in store or online, but in store in particular, what does the fixturing look like? And the PGA Show is a good place to tackle that.
Wonderful. Definitely nice to see it, how they intend it to as a brand and how they visual merchandise it and all that. Definitely.
And if they don't have it, do they have dollars that you can go get something? A lot of the new vendors aren't going to have that, but perhaps they can give you a deeper discount so that you can go find something to bring their product to life.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The only thing that I would have to add to that is not only, bring those numbers with you, but also know your business. to have the ability to show your vendors their analysis or your floor plan if you need to is great, so that they can see it and visualize it. But you should be able to tell them, you know, your business, how you've done over the past season, without having to look at that information well. So know your business before you go in, but also bring it with you so that they can see it. And then the other part I have is, you know, to see what new vendors are attending, make sure you go through that PGA Show exhibitor list. You can filter through all of the different, you know, whether it's a hard or soft good, club manufacturer, ladies apparel. It's a good place to go through and figure out who you want to see ahead of time.
And I might add something super quick too. If there's some more novice buyers, or you know, this is your first or second show, you haven't really had a lot of experience at your club at this point, at least for numbers, at least take what your sales are by department, maybe by category if you have it, at least print a sales report. That should be pretty readily accessible for you. And so you can at least look at that, and you can do a sales by vendor. There's some great easy reporting in most POS systems. And I would also tell you all, if you're members of the AGM, you have the retail manual, go to your retail math basics. You can calculate a couple of things, super easy. So I don't want you, the biggest thing is don't feel so overwhelmed and being prepared. Be prepared with what you are able to find out about your business. So I think that's really important. We all know we've had a starting point, and I know if they say, well, how was your business? You can at least say, well, we sold this much. This color story was the best color story, and I have this left. That kind of idea. Keep it super simple, but at least you'll be able to start a conversation.
Definitely. That's a great key, Lisa. Definitely. Awesome. So managing your time once you're on the show floor, a lot of these things our panelists have touched on, but definitely important to have your vendor appointments scheduled, as well as balancing that with time to walk the show floor without appointments. So you never know what you might discover or come across as you're walking the show floor and coming across new vendors. Bobby mentioned about this in regards to meeting your key vendors. Some buyers like to wait to meet those locally, as he mentioned. So as long as you have a plan of attack towards that, if you are going to meet them at the show and block and use your time that way, or if you're going to wait and see them, your local rep, when you're back home. And during your appointments, it's good to go in with a plan, most importantly, of how you're going to best use your time. We're all working with very limited time during the show of those days of what we can get done and trying to get through all our meetings. So it's good to lead the appointment and go in with a plan before you meet with your rep, as well as dividing and conquering with your team. So touch base and review updates with your team throughout the week. As our panelists mentioned, different facilities sometimes have different people on their team assigned to a different category or a different task. So just making sure everyone knows what they're there to do and how they're using their time the most wisely, and balancing it all.
Look, if you are going to book back-to-back appointments, or, you know, appointments all through the day, try to leave 10 minutes in between, either for an overage time on your last meeting or just walking to make sure you know that you're going, you know, in the right direction. You can be traveling a long ways. And then make sure that you book time for lunch. A lot of people forget to leave lunch, as, you know, whatever that 30 minutes to 45 minutes is, but it's absolutely necessary. And if you find yourself at 3 or 4 o'clock and you realize that you haven't had lunch, you're going to be tired the next day.
Speaking to Justine said, divide and conquer with your team. I would echo that. And I would also say, really lean into whatever groups you're a part of. Obviously AGM, some of us are part of the National Golf Buyers Association. You will get twice as much out of the show if you do daily debriefs with folks in those trade groups. Because there are things that you just won't hear, people you can't meet with. You might meet with the same person and they hear something different. So you'll get, I promise you'll get twice as much out of it if you get a group of 5 different organizations together, you know, for a cocktail at 6:30 and talk about what was the best buy you heard of today, what were the best brands you saw, what are you most excited about. You will get way more out of the show than if you just do it alone.
I wanted to look at considering new vendors. That's definitely a big piece at the PGA show for a lot of buyers is sourcing new product, new vendors, entertaining those new ideas heading into the new year. So it's great to consider your membership, any changes to your membership that may affect what your buy needs to look like going into the next year and making those necessary changes. The new product zone is an area that can speak to this. Also important to think about how you select new vendors. Things like, do they offer the right product that you're looking for? Very important that they can ship your product on time and complete. Are special orders available? What does their customer service look like? What about returns and RAs? Are they able to facilitate them? So those are all important questions to ask when you're entertaining a new vendor partnership, as well as show specials. Some vendors are able to offer freight specials if you're booking at the show, and you can always negotiate. And even if you're not looking for new vendors right now, it's always good to keep your eyes open to what's new. You may see something that ends up being relevant to you next season, 6 months from now, a year from now. You might remember, oh, I saw that at the show and I took a quick picture of it, and it's a great fit for an event I have coming up. Things like that. But one question I wanted to pose to the panel was, what do you have a one question or a couple of important questions that you make sure you ask when you are meeting with a new vendor for the first time or seeing them for the first time at the PGA show before you engage in new business with them?
Once you've determined that their product is a possible fit, the price point's a fit, the margin is acceptable, then you can start asking some more probing questions like, what does their distribution look like? What do their marketing efforts look like? What is that? I talked about fixturing later. How do they bring that story to life? Especially if they're a newer vendor, we always kind of use the terminology crawl, walk, run. So there might be a smaller initial order, and then upon proof of concept, we'll go larger and larger and eventually roll out company-wide. And part of that crawl conversation is, or maybe crawl to walk conversation would be, okay, what sort of support is there if we're seeing success in certain lines, but not in others? What sort of flexibility do you have to flop out that inventory to make sure this partnership is successful? Because the last thing we want is to not be reordering because we have too many inventory dollars and things that are sitting while everything that was moving has sold out and we don't have the dollars to reorder. So those are some of the questions that we ask and typically get some pretty good responses. One kind of fun one to ask that typically stumps vendors because they don't necessarily think about it this way is, what do you think an acceptable turn is on your product in this category? And they don't often think about it that way because they're just thinking about sell-in. Not that they don't care about your turns, it's just not part of their purview. So that's a really good one to kind of get the conversation started, and you can certainly have some debate and then back into what the right buy should be based on what you mutually agree that turn ought to look like.
Those are great questions. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, I totally agree with that too. And I would say, we do a very similar thing. Obviously, our operation isn't quite as big as Austad's, but crawl, walk, run is not how we, have normally called it. But I like that terminology. A lot of times, especially maybe in our ladies' apparel, we won't bring in a new vendor until we've seen, a turnover in either a trunk show, heavy sales in a trunk show through an event, or a very small drop. Nothing bigger for us than 48 units to see if there's even intrigue. And a lot of that we might even do on consignment. Very few things we carried unlogoed in our golf shop because we are private and the logo sells. But if we have to do, local embroidery on a consignment order, that's an option for us as well. And then I think the most important thing for selecting new vendors is making sure that they fit a niche. So the product might be fantastic, but if it's already something that you might carry in the shop, if I carry Peter Millar and I find a men's brand that looks, feels, and has the same price point at Peter Millar, if I think it sells, great, but is it going to sell well because I already carry it? Make sure that you're filling gaps in your assortment that might not already be there with new vendors.
Absolutely. That's a great way to use your open to buy dollars most efficiently, is fill in those gaps, and really like the idea of starting small with new vendors and working your way up to bigger groups.
Yeah, just to jump in, I agree with everything Ryan and Andrew both said. They said a lot of really good things that we also do here with, just starting small. But one of the things I always try to think of when I consider a new vendor is really my goal always for a new vendor, and I always want our team's goal when they bring in consider a new vendor is the goal should be to grow the business. Like if it's just going to be a 36-piece order forever, then it's not really a vendor that I think is worth having. It's like, to me, it's like my goal is to grow it. I want to see, if I see it a vendor I like enough to want to bring in, it's the goal is to get to that run point that Ryan talked about. You know, if it's just a crawl and all we ever think it's going to be is a crawl, then I typically don't. You know, it's hard for me to really get excited about it. So that's kind of a way to consider if you're going to bring in a new brand or not. And but just like Andrew said as well, like if you are a big Peter Millar customer and you're considering 2 other new vendors that are basically mirroring everything that they do off of Peter Millar, same price point, same look, it's tough to really take away in order to bring in something small in that regard. But also too, I don't always just say, they mentioned a lot of great questions, but always just ask questions. I always say you don't get 100% of the things that you don't ask for. And in this industry, it's amazing how many things that we've been able to get just by asking for them, whether it be better terms or different kinds of things that benefit us, that help us grow a brand, whether it be an existing vendor or a new vendor. Is don't be afraid to ask for stuff that might help you, you know, especially that are mutually beneficial for you and the vendor.
One relevant question that we got when our registrants signed up and they had the opportunity to submit questions, we got a question that relates to this, which came from a vendor partner. And the question is, what is the best piece of advice you can give to a new exhibitor who will be attending the PGA show for the first time?
I would say diligent follow-up. I think they scan the badges. Lisa, I'm sure you can confirm. I think they do that. But you meet so many people that week, and just keep in mind, every retailer, every golf course that walks through there is meeting 100 other people or more. And so it can easily get lost in the shuffle. So don't feel like you're being an overbearing salesperson. If they stopped by and talked to you or took the time to scan their badge or let you scan the badge, they want to talk to you. So probably follow up that first week right after the show. And if you don't hear back, follow up again the week after that. But I would stay on. Certainly we need people to stay on us because we have a lot of to-dos coming out of the PGA show, and it's not for a lack of interest if we don't respond within 7 days.
As if you are a new vendor exhibiting and you've never been before, there's a lot of booths, and anyone who's ever been to the show can tell you that you can look at every booth, but you're not gonna be able to go into everyone. So a lot of times, if you're a vendor, you need to step outside of your booth to bring people in. Don't be afraid to step out in the aisle and actually introduce yourself and say, hey, you know, here's what I'm selling and here's why it might be of interest. They might shove you off at first, but if you keep doing that, enough people will come into your booth that you'll get your information out.
What the biggest piece of advice for a new vendor to me is just be active and focused, and don't be a wallflower. Because if you're a wallflower, no one's going to notice you, and they're going to actually probably try to avoid you. This will probably make Andrew laugh, but we have a mutual friend, and she is absolutely the greatest, like, on floor like person at a show, and they're a relatively new vendor, and she has done an unbelievable job. I've watched her in action, and it's hilarious how good she is at getting people to stop by and actually listen to about the product that they have, which is also, they also have a great product, which helps, but she's unbelievable at what she does in that. And I've seen it firsthand how impactful that can be, and how excited she is. And if you show a genuine excitement about your product, it'll come across in the way you speak to people.
Yeah, I challenge anyone to go by that booth and not be sucked in to see what they're selling. Guaranteed.
So now we have some great documents that Andrew was kind enough to share with us in advance. Andrew, I'd be happy to have you share a little bit of how you use these documents and how they help you be more successful at the show.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. And if you've been in this seminar before, you know, I've shared very similar, ideas in the past, but this is just an idea that I had a few years back going through new vendors. Like I said, I have a small team. It's usually myself and one others going through a bunch of new vendors and a lot of booths, and there's a ton of information. So ahead of the show, planning ahead, kind of my mantra is going through that PGA Show exhibitor list. On the right side, what I've done is I've taken all of the booths that I definitely want to see during the week, and I've sorted them by their booth number. That way I can plan on, whether it's Thursday afternoon or Friday morning, starting at 1801 and working their way all the way to 7363. And along the way, I'll hit every single one. So this minimizes my foot traffic on the floor. If I haven't already seen that booth during the week, that way I can get, in and out. I can probably do these 40 booths in 2 hours if I really plan my time right. And then on the left side, we have it's a new vendor checklist that I use, and I certainly won't use this for every booth, and I won't fill out all the information for every meeting or stop that I do, but it is important for me to get this information so that when I get back to Rochester, back to Oak Hill, I can look through the follow-ups or follow up with vendors that I want to talk to based on the information that I wrote down. For me, for our private club, embroidery is important. So if I find a new vendor that I find exciting, but they don't do embroidery in-house, then it brings up the possibility of doing it as a local embroidery, but it also adds more logistical challenge. So maybe that'll be a problem that I foresee with this vendor, and I actually won't use them until they have in-house embroidery. That being one example, but this is all information that is useful in the follow-ups with new vendor conversations.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andrew. A lot of great information here and good organization, which is key.
Sometimes a little bit too much. So I try not to write on every single line. I like to make sure that there's also a positive interaction going on.
Then we have a great floor plan that Andrew shared with us.
Yeah, I'm no artist. So this is put together on Publisher, and year to year it changes. But this is something that I take with me. I print it on a large poster and I keep it with me. That way I can always show our vendors where in the shop they are, if they've moved, or where I have open spaces. And it also allows me to see what needs I might still have available. So, for our fall buy, if we do meet with Peter, well, not this year, but should we meet with Peter Millar and we're doing our buy on spot, I like to know exactly what units I need, where we'd place them. And this allows, kind of going back to what Ryan said earlier, if I'm bringing in a new vendor, I need to be able to showcase and display their attire appropriately so that I can sell it. And if there's no open spaces that feel like they're actually going to showcase that product appropriately, then it's not a good fit. It also allows me to, when I'm doing my ladies buy in particular, because we have a lot more turn in vendors for our ladies buys, you'll see it kind of on the right side of that floor plan. We rotate through a lot more vendors than we do on our men's side. That's just because we have a younger demographic of ladies who likes to see more turn, more trends. This helps me kind of identify what I need to focus on for those buys. So it's kind of dual purpose for myself and for the vendors that I'm meeting with. And this is more of the same. This is just 2 other spaces that we dedicate to our member only logo. And then we have a separate space for our junior collection. We do the exact same thing here.
Thank you, Andrew. These are great diagrams.
Yeah, I would encourage, anyone who doesn't have a floor plan, make one. It'll help you visualize your space, and I guarantee you that you'll find out something about maximizing your floor space that you haven't already done before.
So now we're going to dive into some of the additional features that you can find on the PGA Show website. All the information is sorted by event and theme on this great show features page. Lisa, I'd be happy to hear some more thoughts on this page and how it can be used.
So this again starts from that very first page. When you go to the website, you click on show overview and hours. As you drill down that page, this is where that is your home page, if you will, to get to all of this information. So if you want information on demo day, what's happening with the fashion show, who's in the fashion show, where the fashion show is located, if you want to buy conference, if you want to, we have a brand new club amenities area for those of you who maybe have additional roles of needing to buy hospitality items for your club, or you are thinking about putting a sim at your club or something like that. There's a whole area for this now. The career zone, which is a really great area. Also, we're having education content there, swinging into successes as you move through different job progressions. We've got Jack Dillon there who's speaking at AGM. He's speaking for me too, interviewing a couple of young professionals. And we have some great companies that are looking for employees. They have a lot of job openings. So not that you're going to go to the show because you're going to leave your current job, but you never know who might want to get in the industry, and you might want to check out and see what's going on there. But what's great about this is that you can click on any of these. It takes you directly to the page. And that's a really great way to get, again, build more information into your plan. I also want to highlight all of the schedules of education content that's happening on all the stages. So there's another section, our special event section, and that has all kinds of information for a lot of complimentary educational sessions, programming, events. If you have time for pickleball, you can even get rotated in and play a little bit of pickleball while you're here. We have 2 courts this year, not just 1. We're growing as fast as everybody else with that, but really, really use the PGA Show website as a great resource, because as you get here and you find things out you didn't know about it, I want to make sure you know about it and can plan ahead. Okay. And this technology one is great. So when everybody was talking about for that new vendor, you know, keeping involved, and then, or you saw something you can't remember, we have Collect this year, which you can go to this Collect page and it will show you how you can collect all the information from exhibitors. Rather than exhibitors just scanning you, you have the ability to scan them and get all of their information. And for the vendors in the audience, please, please, please make sure that you have your web page, your listing as complete as you possibly can with all of your information. Because to have just a brand, not a website, not, you know, no links to catalogs, like our functionality is great. So as an exhibitor, make sure that you're using all the tools. But we're really excited to have Collect this year, and this page will show you exactly how to use it. I saw Tracy asked about the mobile app. The mobile app will be live and updated next week. So for those of you who have used it, you can still use it now. It's just not completely updated with 2024 information.
Awesome. Looking forward to trying out all these things this year at the show. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the educational opportunities going on during the week of the show, both with the AGM and the PGA. So first, we have our AGM Retail Conference that is on Tuesday, January 23rd at the Orange County Convention Center from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you haven't already registered, we'd be happy to have you join us for this event. We have 3 learning tracks this year. We have merchandising, management, and marketing, with seminars, panel discussions, and networking opportunities for AGM merchandiser members and vendor partners throughout the day. And if you are a PGA member, you do receive 8 PGA education credits for attending, and LPGA members are eligible for 4 credits for attendance. So a great opportunity to get your education points.
And we work with PGA of America. So PGA America creates all the content for PGA professionals under their learning tracks of teaching and coaching, golf operations management, and executive management. And so you will see the different icons that tell you what's what. So you can see like live lessons with Joe Peaker out at Demo Day as a teaching and coaching session. So it's super easy to navigate through this. You can navigate through this by track. And this year, for the first time in a long time, we have partnered with other associations. The AGM has been a part of association content, but we've worked with speakers from Club Managers Association, National Golf Course Owners, etc., and have brought those quality of programs and speakers into the conference this year. So where you see association partner content, those are those sessions. So, you know, it's anywhere from booking entertainment from your club, because we all wear different hats and we don't know what we're going to have to do on one day, and we're told we got to figure out we're gonna hire an entertainer for a member guest evening or something like that. So you have that. How do you handle media? Corey Saban is a former reporter that's going to talk about, it's not if, it's when. You might have some kind of public incident or some kind of situation you want to be aware of. And then, of course, AGM, Tracy's doing one. Take a look at your 7 seconds to look in your golf shop, things like that. And Jennifer's doing a session. So we find that we know you guys are all very, very busy, but we wanted to try and put at least 1 or 2 sessions of information while you're here that you can add some of your education if available. And so this is meant to be a little bit more robust for even non-PGA professionals, but for these golf industry professionals and all the things you're doing in your roles. So the full schedule is available. And then I sent links to the 2 that Tracy and Jennifer are doing also. So you can go right to those guys, because those will be excellent.
Thank you. Yes, a lot of great content to choose from. One of the questions that we got in advance from our attendees today was, what AGM seminars do they recommend that we sit in on during the show? And these 2 from Tracy and Jennifer would certainly be the top of the list. So we have Tracy Moffitt, one of our CRM instructors from K&K Consulting, is presenting on Thursday at the show. So looking forward to seeing that. As well as our very own Jennifer Morton is giving a marketing presentation, the CEO of the AGM, on Thursday as well. So I think those will be 2 great ones to check out while you're there. So I also wanted to mention a few of the additional AGM opportunities we have going on during the show week, in addition to our retail conference. The first would be our AGM product preview reception, which is also on Tuesday, January 23rd in the evening. It closes out our retail conference from 5 to 7 p.m. It is free to attend, so you are welcome to register just for this piece of the day. Last year, we saw about 600 buyers and guests in attendance, so great turnout. The vendor spots are filling up quickly. So great opportunity to see our vendor partners in advance of the show in a less overwhelming environment, in a more smaller, more intimate setting. We also have our AGM Platinum Award presentation, which is very exciting, and we'll be presenting not only the top 100 Platinum Award winners for 2024, but also the Cashman Award for Visual Excellence is going to be presented, as well as the Best of the Best Top 10 Awards. And that is on Wednesday morning, January 24th at 11 a.m. on the fashion show stage. And we are sponsored by the Dallas Market Center and the JCK Show for Reed Exhibitions for a wonderful champagne toast for the winners. So looking forward to that.
And Justine, I just want to jump in to say to everyone that just kind of in regards to that question is the AGM the conference is so valuable and it's so important to attend, especially if you're new in the industry. But even if you're not, I can't tell you how many times over the years I picked up something super valuable there, and pretty much everybody on our team that's ever gone has always picked up at least a couple things from all of the various ones over the years. I still remember a lot of the stuff, and especially the keynote speakers that have spoken over the many years that we've gone. So the AGM does such an amazing job with this. They put a lot of work into it, and I think it's really worth your time if you're on the fence about going. And the same thing with all the PGA education things. That's one of the things I love most about the PGA, the AGM, and just our industry is they realize the importance of just continuous education. And it's one of the things that I love about being in this industry is that I'm never done learning. And so great opportunities to learn throughout the show.
Thank you, Bobby. And we will be at booth number 4663 for the AGM, so we hope to see you there. Lisa, I have some slides here as well on the special events and the additional presentations going on the stages, Career Zone, all that.
So I did speak a little bit to this already, but again, love that, Bobby. We're always learning. So take a look at these schedules, particularly the ones on the show floor that are complimentary, that you can, go ahead and get on your calendar. There's one I want to call out on the club amenity stage. Two Hemispheres is doing a presentation called Converting Your Pro Shop to a Member Shop. This seminar is going to be phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. They do such a really good job, but it really talks about how do you have a shop that lasts for the next 20 years when you do a renovation, how you approach renovation, what are the questions to ask, You know, because we know people are thinking that, you know, some people feel retail isn't as important. So how do you keep retail important? What does it look like? And they're phenomenal at Two Hemispheres. Molly and Mitzi have amazing backgrounds. So if there's one seminar I would see that one. I should have had noted the date and time of that. I think it's Wednesday at noon on the Career Zone stage. And then the next day they're talking about Sims. So if anybody is putting Sims in, what do I do with my space with a Sim? So there's just, look at all of these other opportunities to stop by for a half an hour to 45-minute presentation, maybe grab your lunch, eat your lunch while you're listening to something, because there's a lot around noontime. But again, we want to just make sure we feed you as much information as we can while we're all together.
Thank you, Lisa. I have some more images here of the Career Zone, which I know Lisa touched on, all the great things coming to the Career Zone, as well as one of the panel discussions that the AGM is partnering with the NGSA and RepSpark for a Get Your Golf Sales Career in Full Swing little panel discussion. So we're looking forward to that as well on Thursday, January 25th at 2 p.m. I have the seminar that Lisa was just mentioning, the turning your pro shop into a member shop notes here on the Clubhouse stage, 12:30 p.m. on Wednesday, January 24th. So great opportunity there. I hope to check that one out. So here we have information on the VIP Buyer Lounge. Lisa, I'd be happy to have you share a bit more information about this program and what is available to these buyers that qualify for this program.
Sure. Well, first of all, if you're on and you don't know if you're part of the program or not, please reach out to me and we can see if you qualify for the program or not. There's a couple of how you attend the show, what your role is with the company, and some purchasing requirements. We really believe everybody all shops are great, but we do have some minimum qualifiers that we need to look at. For those of you that have qualified for VIP program, we are really excited. The VIP Buyer Lounge is in room W209A and B. This is as you go in the main entrance where the main registration is, the doors to the left. You go through those doors and it's right to the left. It is super easy access to the show floor from this location. We are bringing lunches and breakfast back to the lounge. We are not doing vouchers this year, so plan accordingly. The link that is in here is a dedicated page for VIP buyers. So you can go to this page. It's got all the information about the hours of the lounge. We're doing a lunch and learn in the lounge this year on Thursday with Eastside Golf, talking about bringing in some different brands, because we all know our members are changing, customers are changing. And so a great conversation with Eastside Golf, that's going to happen in the lounge while you have lunch on Thursday. There's some couple of other information pieces in there. So please go and check it out. But again, if you're not sure if you're in the VIP buyer program, please just reach out to me.
And then last thing here we have is the fashion show, which Lisa briefly mentioned, and it looks like it has a new home this year at the show.
The show is back, and we're back into Hall E, which we haven't been in Hall E for years. So we're super excited. We have almost 1,000 exhibitors. I think we're at 987 this morning. So lots of exhibitors. We've moved into Hall E, which is on the far end of the apparel section, the apparel area of the show floor. So it's down past like Polo and those guys that are down on the far end. And so you'll go underneath the blockhouse there, for those of you know, and it's in the big location, Hall E. It's on a big, beautiful stage with two big, huge monitors on it. And this is actually where our concert is also going to be, which I'm sure everybody's heard. Hopefully Thursday night, we're doing a concert in this location at the convention center with Jake Owen. It will be acoustic. We're very excited to show our appreciation for our PGA members, for all of our golf industry attendees and buyers. And it's complimentary with your show badge. So we hope you all will plan to come and attend that. just have some good old fun, listening to some music, hear Jake, and there's a DJ afterwards for a little after party. So all that's down in Hall E.
One of the questions that we got that I think is a great question to get started is, if you only had one day at the PGA show, what would be your plan?
You know, if I only had one day, I probably wouldn't do any meetings. I would focus on walking the show floor and seeing all of the vendors that, you know, maybe I haven't seen before. If you're going for one day, you likely have the ability to meet with your local reps anyways, to pre-book and set meetings outside of the show. Focus on what you can't get, you know, outside of this realm, and meet some new people and see some new brands.
Justine, I would just say it depends on what your goal is. So again, I would try to set a very clear goal or goals for the show, and then you can set your structure from there. And if you only have a day, make sure you're very clear on what your goal is, and anything that does not meet your goal, do not schedule it for that one day.
Yeah, so I mean, same thing that those guys said, and just along the lines of, you know, when you, because it's kind of a rapid fire when you're there one day, is just make sure that you, I think it's a good idea, just anyways, even if you're there multiple days, is when you speak to a new person, you meet a new person, write down their name and which vendor. I carry a little notebook with me, so I have that. You can do it in your phone. That way, when you look back on a vendor, you think about it, you're like, okay, I remember I talked to so-and-so, as opposed to maybe when you get a follow-up email, you're like, who is this guy? Did I meet this person? And, you know, and then you actually have a note from meeting them. So
Definitely a lot of new faces, so good to keep notes. Another great question we received from one of our attendees to this webinar was, do you use any forecasting tools to aid with your buying, or just primarily historical data?
We use our historical data to get some sense of where we think we're going to be sales wise for that category, or maybe a particular vendor. If we're not working with that vendor, maybe just by category. And then we always have a turn goal in mind, so we can back into our open to buy. And then we just call it the Austad fudge factor of, hey, what do we think 2024 is going to be like? Do we think it's a growth year? Are we flat? Do we think we're going to be down? And so we can adjust from there. But by and large, we're looking at our historical sales by department, vendor, category, and then we're using a turn goal to get our open to buy.
Another question we received, with so many vendors to see, how much time should you allocate per appointment? I think this is a great question as we get ready to plan our days and such and leave appropriate time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on, again, what you're looking for, but I try not to spend more than 45 minutes with one vendor. For the most part, I will have already picked the product that I want from existing vendors, or I'd like to see on an order, and we'll sit down and edit whatever is necessary. We won't chit chat much, and we'll get it done in certainly under an hour. And that'll leave me a lot of time to either get to the next vendor, you know, that 10 minutes in between, or even find some booths before the next meeting so that we can, you know, meet some new vendors.
I would also be upfront with whatever vendor you're meeting with. And if you have 10 minutes, tell them you have 10 minutes. You'd be amazed what you can get done in 10 minutes, but just say it at the front of the meeting. Hey, I want to meet with you. I have 10 minutes before I have to run. Let's go. And you'll probably get what you need in that 10-minute time frame.
100%.
yeah, I agree. And we try to limit max to an hour, and really that's an absolute max. And the other thing too, I would just recommend it too, is sometimes you'll get into an appointment or get into a conversation, and you'll see that you're trying to get through a line, and you can see that the person showing it to you is like not going at nearly the pace that you need. So just don't be afraid to say like, hey, we need to pick it up here, because otherwise you're going to get halfway through it and then you're done. So
Definitely, that's a great tip. Don't be afraid to speak up and get what you need as far as your timeline for your day, so you're not setting yourself behind. I like to think about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the vendor, and if it's apparel or accessories, is safe. And 45 minutes gives you a nice 15-minute block to get to your next appointment before you have something booked at the next hour. Another question we received was how to find the best new products for 2024. Lisa, would the new product zone be a good place to start in this case?
Yeah, and again, you know, we keep talking about being prepared. Just you can filter on the exhibitors by new products and first time companies to the show. So you can already have a pretty good game plan just looking ahead of time, which is why it's important for vendors to completely take advantage of all the tools we have for them to list with the show. So, and then you can, from there, can hone in what type of new product am I looking for, men's, women's, juniors, accessories. So you can, you can get a really good feel, of course, walking the whole area. Leave yourself some time to walk the new product zone. It's a new pavilion this year. We've redone it and it's stunning. You're going to want to be in there because it's done really well.
One more question we had from our attendees. We have attended the PGA show for over 25 years and find ourselves in the same routine every time. We would like to change that. So what are your top 5 must-dos while at the PGA show? Even if it's just 1 or 2, I'd be happy to hear what you all would do to change up the routine for those folks who are in the same routine year after year of how they attend and how they spend their time.
Justine, it depends a little bit what the routine has been, but if you want to change it up, what I see a lot of people not do at the PGA show is take time to build camaraderie with their teams and go a day early, stay a day late, go to Universal Studios, do something silly while you're in Orlando with your team that is maybe totally outside of the world of golf, but what a wonderful opportunity it is to get down there with your team outside of the office, outside of their normal day-to-day routines, and hopefully bond in a way that's difficult to do while sitting in an office setting.
Definitely taking advantage of what's available to you and making the most of traveling to Orlando if there's other things you can do while you're in the city of Orlando.
Yeah, 25 years, that's a long time. I should really be taking notes from you guys. But, another thing that I think people often neglect to do is use the entirety of the open floor time. It's what is it, 8:30 to 6 open floor time? And I see people leave at 3:30 in the afternoon, and you're neglecting the whole reason why you came. So I think that if you're feel like you're missing something, sometimes the best times are either earlier in the morning or later in the afternoon when people have dispersed or they have not arrived early, and you might find something that you weren't originally looking for.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of like what Ryan said, it depends on what that plan was for 25 years. But the thing that I think is really just, it's amazing what you can accomplish when you just make a commitment to doing something different. Just like if you're trying to change anything in your life, like when you commit to doing it, it's amazing. You create that awareness that, hey, we're not going to do this year, so let's create, make it a point to actually do something new. And also just to follow up on the last question about new products. I mean, that's, to me, for me, my perspective going for as long as I have is, used to go to the show and like be surprised by new products. Now, to me, I think if you're doing a good job following all these great social media accounts ahead of the show and just all the time, like I'm almost the last probably 3 to 5 years, I mean, just through Instagram, I'm almost never surprised by a new vendor I see at the show. I've already kind of gotten a little bit of visual on it at the very minimum. So I think you can do a lot of that and great preparation, because then you can already have stuff on your radar when you get there. So
2 things. It's Marty Hackle. Number 1, make sure when you take pictures, you also take a picture of the booth so you get the name, because I get home and I have 300 photographs and I go, was that booth? So yeah, always try to have a reference or number your photographs so you have a log so you know exactly where they came from. And number 2, I've been working with a lot of the new vendors that are just showing this year. And I would encourage everyone that's listening to this program to do a little research online before you get to the show and look at their websites. You can sort of pre-edit what you might encounter, particularly if you're looking for kids or gifts or specialized product. This is an easy way to do it before you get to the show. Almost everyone has a website, so utilize that.
Thank you, Marty. Those are great tips and additions, especially around taking photos and making sure you remember what you're taking photos of.
Really would just like to thank all of our panelists today, and I feel like this is one of our best webinars that we do all year. I think that the information that's shared and is really beneficial to all of us. So thank you everyone for taking the time today.